Do you have an introduction or anything? Do you have a...
Yeah,
Hello, how are you? We have a wonderful show for you today. Let's get into it. Today on the show, I've got Timothy Hale, hailing from New Jersey, and Garret Miller speaking. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Like that.
I'm like, oh, I thought you were the host now. I'm like, what the? I'm so confused.
Well, you gotta do something like that, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
It's gotta be.
Suppose so. Here, let me summon up my inner orator. Noise. Hold on. I can do this. Tonight on January 6 Unfiltered, I'm joined by Garret Miller, an old friend from the DC Gulag. We're going to go through his background, his story, and the thoughts we can pry from his mind.
The memory pry bar is approaching my skull.
The memory pry bar approacheth the skulleth.
Yeah. We gotta go back 5 freaking years. Almost. Coming up on it.
Yeah. Turn back the clock. What was that song from the dinosaur movie? We're back. The turn back the rock, turn back the clock. Whatever. Or was it turn back the clock, turn back the rock? Whatever. Anyway. We're joined by Garret Miller, the inventor of the DC Gulag. Garret, thank you for being with me tonight. It's been a long time coming. You've got quite a story, and you're quite a character, if I do say so myself. I know real recognize real. So I'd like to begin by getting into a bit of your background. I and everybody who's done time with you knows that you've got your idiosyncrasies, but...
And the dinosaur movie you were talking about, is that the Super Mario Brothers 90s movie? With, what was it? Well, I don't know.
No, it was a movie...
Haskins, maybe? John Leguizamo.
It was just called We're Back. Yeah, We're Back, a dinosaur's story. Garret, let's stop fucking around, Garret. Let's get to the meat and potatoes.
Turn back the time. Go back to rock. The name is. That's a good song. I like that. I haven't seen that movie yet. I'm gonna have to check it out. Oh shit!
You're fucking retarded.
Really, what year is that? It's like some 90s kid stuff.
Definitely 90s, yeah. Definitely 90s. Garret, who the fuck are you actually? When you're not abducting drifters into your van to skin alive. Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your background before J6.
Let's see. So I was like a lens crafter for 5 years. And then November election was stolen, so I quit my job, started protesting, just joined the Stop the Steal. Owen Schroyer started a Stop the Steal caravan in I don't know, California or whatever, and when he got to Austin, I joined up and caught up with him in Louisiana. And then, when the Stop the Steal protest got to, D.C., a whole bunch of people were, getting assaulted by Antifa. Just my background. So, just a Boy Scout, I don't know, Eagle Scout from Texas, have a college degree in general studies. What else is there remarkable to say? Picking up drifters in my band. I never picked up any drifters.
You're right.
I would hunt. I used to hunt, but that was years. I mean, at that time I was hunting, and I would kill deer and skin them. Actually, I wouldn't bother skinning them. I just gut them, and then I would. I had to my meat processor was like a Mormon, and they would do the skinning. So it's, I don't know if you call it deer drifters, but it's made me think of it.
I'm just going off Wikipedia. They say you're a cannibal. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know,
You can't argue with Wikipedia.
CNN will do that to you. It's kind of crazy. Just seeing how much tamer the news is under Trump, as far as like absurd lies, or how long it takes, or how much leniency they give criminals under Trump. Is like, oh, he might be an MS-13 gang member, but he's a father or whatever. He's a father and a husband. You know,
he's a Maryland man.
A Maryland man. But you know, yeah, we're domestic terrorists. So, you know, I had a 1986 Ford Econoline van that was posted all over the news when I was arrested. It is kind of creepy looking, but like I got it for free. So a Vietnam vet in Austin was like, "You can have it." It's a friend of my dad's, and we towed it back to Dallas, and we just worked on the engine and put new tires on it, got it running again, and that was kind of like my travel wagon. So I had like a bed in the back, and I could just load it full of whatever camping crap I wanted.
You had said something interesting before. You'd said that you quit your job after the election.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Oh, I didn't quit. At that point, I was just like, I just got into a fight with the boss, and then they were like, you can go home, and then just never. I thought I was fired at that point, but they have to pay you like severance if they fire you, so they didn't fire me. And they called me in like December to try and get me to come back in. And I just was like, really? No thanks. See, at that point, I quit, and I was just kind of protesting. I also had a dog boarding business, so I was working like 2 jobs, really, maybe 3. I just can't remember what the third source of income was. Yeah, so I was like, at that time in my life, I would have like 12 dogs at my house on Christmas, and, you know, run over my parents' house for Christmas dinner, and then run back and feed all the dogs and let them out to poop and pee, and then, and my dog boarding business was going pretty good. I had it through Rover. But Rover just kicked me off when I got arrested, and they wouldn't even allow anyone at my address to reopen a new account. They did a total shadow ban, which was crazy.
That was why did that happen?
Because tech bros are Democrats, or they were Democrats at least at that time. And they were Nazi Democrats, like total. I don't know what you would call it, but it did feel like a super police state, didn't it? I mean, you had COVID. The whole COVID thing was like police state too. It was just crazy. But protesting November and December, Proud Boys were actively trying to beat up anyone in Antifa look-alike, and really had no issues in December because of that. When the protest in D.C. happened again, and then January 6th. But really, I think that's most of the backstory. Just a single guy from Dallas. A single guy from Dallas with a pretty, I don't know, normal suburban background, yeah.
And so, you know, you're going to protests. Obviously, you know, you have apprehension about the election. Leading up to January 6th, protests, you said you had been going to protests. What was your motivation for going to DC itself on January 6th? Like, what were your expectations?
At that time, I thought, I thought it would be like a Supreme Court case, at least, a lot like Al Gore's, hanging chaff stuff. That was kind of like, I thought there would be a contestation of the election. Similar to, what was it, 2000?
Yeah,
and,
Bush v. Gore, 2000.
Or 2000. I can't remember what year that was. But, that obviously didn't happen. Basically just listened to Trump's speech. When he finished, went to the Capitol. At the Capitol, it was chaos. Police sent me around, police told me to go around, so I did what the police told me to. But around would be towards the front of the Capitol, and then
this is the west side. Like you walked straight from the ellipse after the speech to Capitol grounds.
Yeah, that's on the west side. Police were. It was kind of chaos. Police were directing people around because I was kind of on the north side of the Capitol. There were no fences or anything, so I just walked around like I was told. And then, like, explosions went off, and people started moving the fences. And went to the front steps. People pushed up the steps. Got put in handcuffs. Got released. The door opened eventually. Went into the Capitol, walked around a bit. Police formed a line, started beating people up and pushing them out. Got hit in the face a couple times and pepper sprayed, and then left, walked around a bit, and went home. I thought it was just, normal protest stuff. It seemed, it was, there were like speeches and a lot of singing. It was a cool day. I thought it was cool.
Best day of my life. It was funny.
Yeah, it was fun, man.
Depending on the circumstance, it was either chaos or it was jubilant. I remember you had said, can you clear up? Like, I believe they tried to accuse you of hitting a cop, but from what I saw from video, it looked like they had tried to fuck you up. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wasn't hitting cops. But they were hitting women, so I was getting in the way. And, so they just started they hit me in the head with a stick too, so it's whatever. I wouldn't really mad about me being assaulted by the cops because, I don't know, just not that big a deal. But to say that I pled guilty to assault because 111A is assault or impeding. So, I definitely impeded or whatever the singular version of, I impeded the police, but no one from the left ever gets charged or had, maybe at this point they have. Certainly not in the hundreds, we were, maybe 10 Antifa have been charged, even with Trump as president, with assault in the form of impeding.
So is it fair to say then? Is it fair to say then that you're an extreme impeder?
What? Man, that sounds like some sort of. It sounds like touching Peter too much. I don't know, but yeah, I guess so. I'm an extreme impeder.
He's a raging impeder.
Guilty, definitely worthy of years of prison.
So
according to CNN for sure.
You earned it, buddy. Fucking radical impeder. So what happens following that? Okay, you leave. Yeah. Where do you go from there? What's the rest of your day like? Obviously, you thought it was just pretty chill for the most part. they made a mountain out of a molehill for a lot of us. But when did you start to think that like, ooh, they're not treating this like I thought they would?
I mean, I was in denial. Even I was looking at it and just like not understanding what was going on for a long time. Like I started driving home, and while I was driving, I tweeted assassinate AOC, but I was like driving while tweeting, so it was kind of like a typo error.
As one does.
Like I started to type asshole or something like that, and then assassinate was like Apple spell corrected, and I was like, okay. And then like I didn't know how to use Twitter that well at that point, so I thought I had to type at AOC, and then it like spell corrected at AOC and took out the at. So whatever. I mean, I just hit send when I was like, oh, that's sufficient while driving. But I was also seeing videos of like January 6ers that were still there getting beat up by police on the Twitter feeds, and I'd just been hit in the head, and Ashley Babbitt had been murdered. So like, yeah, I was kind of pissed off. You get punched in the face, and you don't punch anyone back. You get pissed off a little bit.
Yeah.
But got home, started watching the news, and it was just on repeat of like the cop with the helmet getting hit in the head with a fire extinguisher. Just that, like, that cut was being played, and then they were saying stuff like, a police officer or 5 police officers. They didn't say 5 police officers. At that point, they said a police officer had been murdered by protesters, which I knew was bullshit. Because if you had been there on that day, you knew like how careful protesters were. I mean, I saw hundreds of people getting hit with sticks by police and not hitting police back. That was my experience, just from what I could see in my general vicinity. And if someone was getting too violent, people would like restrain them and pull them away from police generally, and people were like watching out for the property of the Capitol and just like good Samaritan type shit. Police didn't have any control of the area, and they were vastly more violent than everyone else. So like you get home and then you see on CNN violent protesters, whatever, what were they calling? They were calling it insurrection all the time, which at that point, like I think insurrection was pushed hour 1, if I remember right. Which if you'd been there was total insanity.
Right. What do you think was the spark that caused, again, like I expected just to be at a protest, and then there's the insurrection narrative, but in reality, like at worst, it was a couple hour long riot. What do you think was the main cause, or what different factors do you think go into it? Do you think it was incited? Do you think it was planned? Do you think there were provocateurs? What's your assessment of what actually happened?
I think genuine grievances with an insane deep state operation being run to strip the American people of their rights. I mean, it was just like, what do I think? Well, I think no one trusted the news, but to see the news actively trying to throw as many human beings or American citizens in prison as possible. So I don't know. As for the cause of the violence, really, it wasn't that violent from what I saw. I wasn't on the west side much. So for like, when you look at the east side stuff, it was like much more just protesty stuff. What was the question again?
Basically, I was trying to get at like what really was the cause for a riot breaking out. And you are correct. Like the east side was a lot more chill than the west. It seemed like even on the west side, the violence that did happen was isolated to certain areas, like the tunnel or along certain parts of the bike racks there. There was almost no violence inside the building, but insofar as it occurred, did the cops go out of their way to fuck with people? Did people go there with the intention of causing a problem?
I think it was a couple of things. So I think, like, during Trump's speech, word got out that Pence had betrayed Trump and was going to certify the electoral results in favor of Biden. So that the timing of that pissed a lot of people off, where it was like we had gotten there, we listened to the speech, and it was too late to even protest type thing. So there was like a huge section of the crowd that had heard that, and I had heard that. And then I think a second factor would be that we just watched the country get burned up through BLM riots nonstop with this weird psychological operation of BLM video coming out every month. Third factor, just lockdowns, mandates, which, you know, also affected the election, but also affected our lives. So it's like a third factor. Fourth factor is just the way, you know, the people generally together feeling the need to impede the certification of the election. So it was like the crowd mentality of wanting the goal of impeding the certification. You know, which I consider to be a function of protest in general. A lot like a sit-in, but the police were trying to block us from sitting in type thing. So it was like, our house, this is the people's house, freedom of speech, the First Amendment, we have a right to petition our government, and we had this physical force. And there had also been a lot of censorship that was going on at that time, so Facebook censorship, I think, what was Ye's platform, Parler, had been shut down at that point, just before or on January 6th, I can't remember. Trump, I think, in the middle of all of it, had his account blocked.
I think
so, but that might have been after the riot had started.
Yeah.
And then like his
Twitter got nuked.
out, but 3 hours late. Like, he told us to go home, but no one was able to see it for like a couple hours, something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't long after Jay said, like, people's Parler accounts were getting nuked. Trump's his Twitter got he got banned. And yeah, it's also interesting too. I don't know about you, but like, I couldn't get signal after a certain point on my phone, so it was hard to actually retrieve a lot of messages on social media at all, or even to make phone calls.
Yeah. So it was just like communication had broke down. Yeah, that was a big part of it, where there were too many cell phones in the area for anyone really to upload, call, check Facebook, anything. So we had like no information. Police weren't using their loudspeakers at all to say anything to the crowd. Really, all I remember police saying was like, "Move back," or
go
but
around.
They usually said move back after they hit someone. they would usually start hitting people and then would say move back.
Well, these are professionals, sir. You know, I don't know. What was your assessment? I mean, my assessment is that a lot of those cops didn't know what the fuck they were doing. I think some were malicious.
They had like, I had seen DC police before, and they had like the B team out there. They had like kids and a lot of women, or like a lot of the older cops out at first, and then they had like, once they had reserve show up like an hour after everything had started. And then those were like the more common police. But I don't necessarily know if it was planned or if it was just shitty DC Democrat governance where everyone's on their own schedule. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Everything runs like shit in DC.
That's the question, because, the DC, like the Capitol Police answered to Pelosi, and the Metro PD worked for Bowser. There's a question about, did National Guard support get offered and was it rejected? But at the end of the day, both of those police forces answered to Democrat retards. So who set them up, really?
So, and then like the cops that would actually want to work in a shithole like DC, which is not the best, or at least not the brightest. Like, what are you doing living in that place? But so that's kind of why I think violence broke out. But also, it was very peaceful until explosions. But I know now that the explosions were like stun grenades or whatever. But at the time, I had no fucking clue what those bombs were.
Yeah.
But I had the mind state still of protesting. I didn't lose that mind state and think, oh my gosh, fear for my safety. I thought I just had an adrenaline rush with the mind state that I already had before. So, honestly, protesters acted incredibly reasonably. Can't stress it enough, given the circumstances. For like, what I can't, I can't shortchange this at all, but there was like 1 million people there. There were so many people. And there were like maybe a couple hundred cops at first, and that probably swelled to 1,000 with like by the time the military got there, something like that. It was like very few cops for the enormous amount of people. So
here comes the bikes. We got the bike squad coming. That'll do it.
Yeah, the bike, like, 2 bike squads, 30 each tops, but probably like 20. But even with that, they had truckloads of like pepper spray and stun grenades, and they were just loading up bags, rushing to the front just to shoot into the crowd. After the riot, I was just like in disbelief, but I had seen all the stuff, all the smear campaign against Trump for years, so I kind of knew what was going on, but like to see people on Facebook believing it surprised the hell out of me. And I was like, no, and I would get into conversations, people would say, no, I was there, it was peaceful, but then that would be some Democrat, and they would snitch on me. So it made it pretty easy to arrest me.
How did that, like, so actually that's a good transition right there. How did you get picked up? How did they get you? How many people snitched on you?
As far as I know, just one, but there's like I don't remember his name. I don't really care, but there was some guy, I guess, that was friends with me on Facebook that worked for the Mavericks, that would write stories for the Mavericks, like a sports guy. And then he snitched on me because he was posting like CNN articles calling it an insurrection. I said, that wasn't an insurrection, it was just a protest. And then he turns around and hands it off to national news. And but before I made national news, I had my door kicked down and guns pointed at me. So, and then I was on the news for like 2 weeks for nothing. You see a murder, and if it's a Hispanic or an African American, it might make news one day. If it's African American, it might not ever make the news. There might be an article on the website for a black murderer, and there might be a small page story in the back of the Dallas Morning News. Not that I read it, but it wouldn't be on like local news at all. But I was on like local news every day for weeks, which was scary. And then my lawyer was like, "We need to push this statement out to the press to get you off the news." And then he had like this, "It's all Trump's fault" type public statement. And I was like, "Why are you going hard on Trump? You need to reel it back on Trump. I might need a pardon later." And then he reeled it back a little bit, but it was still still a little bit anti-Trump. But I hate my lawyer. I mean, he's a good lawyer. He's a good lawyer, but like he did not give a darn about our political views or Trump or mandates or any of it. He couldn't believe that I didn't want to wear a mask. And it was so bizarre being like I had protested mask mandates for months at that point. And then everyone's like, you have to wear your mask. Well, I had guns pointed at me, so like I just started wearing masks again for a while. Man, it was a fucked up time in our country.
Yes, it was quite Orwellian. And then
everything's so much better now, which justifies everything. If we had not protested, or at least, I mean, I think we really started that movement, because it could have just been censored entirely.
Yeah, it could have been kind of like how it was in Canada, where they were literally like shut it down. You know, all the anti-masker, anti-vax protests up there, where they were like, I think people were having like their banks canceled and stuff like that. So I mean, that was
and that followed us. Like they did a lot of that stuff came after what we did.
Yeah.
And they were way more careful to not be violent because of how hard what happened to us happened. And Trudeau looked worse. Somehow liberals are still in charge in Canada. So I just don't understand why Canada's so messed up.
I think it's a world.
Don't really care either.
It's a World Economic Forum colony, I think. I think legally. I don't want to be controversial, but I think that's what it is. So what happened? So you got your door kicked in. When do you finally when do you actually get charged for January 6th? And take me through your movement through the country. You know, everybody goes through what they call diesel therapy. When do you first get picked up? Where do they send you? And if you can, take me through the roadmap of the roadmap to DC, I guess.
I'll try to be accurate. I might get some jails mixed up, but I get arrested. So they kick my door down. My little brother gets to the door first. I get to the door. And I'm looking down the hallway to my front door, and I see a bunch of lights shining through my door, and there's a guy with like full military armor pointing an M16 at my face. And I had like a small pistol in my pocket. So I'm like staring my death, you know?
Jeez.
But like he could barely see a slit of me. So I was like, I have got to get this gun off me, which was stupid. So I pulled my gun out and threw it in a basket and then came out with my hands up. And then, I get put in handcuffs and it's cold still. It's January, but it's Texas, so it's not like freezing. It was like 6 or 7 a.m. It was before the sun rose, and they like stripped me in my jacket. When they had kicked down my door, they broke my fence, and fortunately, I wasn't watching any dogs. Which, if they had done that shit while I was watching dogs, there had been like 12 Doberman Shepherds and like Great Danes and like German Shepherds, and the cops probably would have shot all of them. You know what I mean? Like, it was really super fortunate that I wasn't watching like dogs on that day, because I had just gotten back from protesting, so I didn't schedule. Usually it's holidays that you watch dogs, right? So I'm in handcuffs. I'm stripped in my jacket. It's freezing cold. I had like the magazine for my pistol, like the extra magazine, in my pocket. So they're unloading all that stuff. They break the window on my truck, but I just give them the keys, and then they break the window on my truck, and I yell at them. And then they try to unlock my phone. Well, actually, they took me to the station first, and then they're looking over their warrant, and then they realize they have to get my phone. And I was like, oh, I don't know where it is, because I guess I left it in my bed, and it was probably under a sheet or something. So they take me back to the house, and they try to do a DNA swab, and I was like, I refuse. I'm not doing a DNA swab. And then they take me back to my house, and they strap me down in the back of the cop car and try to force it. I had a face unlock where it takes a picture of your face and then matches it with your biometric to unlock your phone. So they were like holding my face, trying to shove my phone into it to unlock it. But like I squinted and turned away several times, and my shoulder was kind of fucked up at that. Just at that time, I hadn't had shoulder surgery, so that kind of hurt. With your hands cuffed behind your back, being pushed down in the seat with straps and a whole bunch of hands on you, trying to force your face into the camera on your phone. So that was my first and only trip to the FBI station. And they took me to Lou Sterrig in Dallas and checked me in at that jail, which is a total shithole, like, dungeon. Just the holding cells there are pretty horrible. I had a blanket and a bed pad, but they didn't give me any cups. And it was just like 12. No, it wasn't 12. It was more like 16 people, all like, and a whole bunch of them were like crazy people off the street. And didn't have a cup to drink water, so it's like cupping my hands, and there's no soap, so like it's just really dirty. For the weekend, so it was like 4 days I was there. I think I was like arrested on a Wednesday, and then I didn't have my charges or anything till like the next week sometime. And at that time it was like 5 charges, and I didn't know what any of them meant. And I don't remember what they were. Probably something like 15, 12.
Generic misdemeanor cocktail.
I probably had threats at that point. They probably had threats on that warrant because of the tweet. And from there, they sent me up somewhere else that was nicer. They sent me to, I think, Limestone County Jail, just south of Dallas. And that was kind of a cool jail. That wasn't that bad as far as jails go, but it was like terrible to me because it was nicer than Lou Sterrig. I got like a stick of deodorant, bars of soap, a couple of changes of clothes. I was wearing the same clothes for like 5 days, and then they took me to Lou Sterrig, and I got like my first orange jumpsuit, and I had plenty of Bibles. Everyone had a Bible, or an extra one or whatever, and the guys were cool. Just people that are felons, at least in Limestone, they were cool. Everyone was pre-trial though. In Limestone, one of the guys, a really big white supremacist looking guy actually, got kicked out for suspicion of snitching. So I was learning sign language, how to write snitch. Little black guy was signaling across the hall in the top window. He's standing on a table and like talking to the other cell blocks saying snitch, snitch. And they copped him out or whatever, wrote him out of the pod. It was like a 60-man pod. What was cool about it is it had like a door to like a fenced in area where, and it was like a 16-foot concrete wall box, but the roof was like a chain link fence, where you could see the sky, and they would keep the door unlocked at night because it'd get so humid in there that they'd crack the door so like the humidity could leak out and it wouldn't get too hot. But you could see, I could still see the stars at Loose Derrick. It was just, you never saw the sky. So like I was in there and pretty depressing going from being completely free and then, pretty much a disgusting holding cell. And then Limestone was like, oh wow, huge improvement. And the prison staff, they just kind of like understood the plight kind of, cause they're just like Texans. So they're like, yeah, reminds me of Waco type thing. From there, I got bused to Eaton County, where they put us in, where they were still doing like COVID shit. So it was, a 14-day,
quarantine
on the way in. Quarantine, yeah, where they had us in a small section where we kind of had our own little pods, but we didn't get to go out but twice a week for exercise. And then they put us in a larger unit, and there were two large units, and then there was like solitary confinement. But this is all out in West Texas, so like desert. There were of the two pods. There was like A and B. I can't remember their actual names, but A was like supposedly where a lot of the violent Hispanics younger guys were, and the B was like for the older guys. So I went to the older guys area to kind of avoid some shit. And was there winter of 21. No, it was still tail end of winter 20 to 21, and there was a huge blizzard in Texas, and like 50 people died in a car wreck in Dallas. And then at the jail, we had gotten frozen in pretty much for like 2 weeks. So there was a 2-week stint where no one was getting wrecked, and it was a big barracks style jail with 250 beds. Bunk beds in one big room, restrooms on one side, TV rooms on the other. Pretty decent commissary. And just adjusting, right? Just adjusting. Spring hit there and started playing soccer and got hit from behind by some young 20-year-old South American from somewhere, I don't know. But just basically was being stupid and didn't understand jail, where it's like, you just should not give other races a chance to hurt you. Because they will, and so kind of learned my lesson, shattered my collarbone. It wasn't long, but like a week or two before they threw me on a bus to go to Federal Transfer Center. So it was like ride a bus, jump on a plane, fly to Oklahoma, then go to Shady Grady or Choctaw or whatever you want to call it.
Grady County,
yeah, Grady County, where I slept on a concrete floor for a day with my arm in a sling. Then they flooded the room with the transfer, and then the transfer just went 2 miles to the actual federal transfer facility, where I got thrown into like serious solitary confinement for, I don't know, 2 months, I guess, or 3 months. It felt like forever because it was like you were allowed 2 books. There's no TVs or radios, and they had lockdown for 23 hours and 15 minutes a day on some sort of rotating schedule because it's like a 30 block wing, and to get every cell done, 2 cells at a time, to keep everyone separated, you would have to start at like 6:45 in the morning, and then sometimes you'd be at 6:45, sometimes you'd be at 9 p.m. And that's when you had to take your shower, grab ice, run to the phones, call your family. If you had any time left over after that, you might watch some TV. But I was just total sensory deprivation there. Got surgery eventually while sitting there to have a plate put in on my shattered collarbone, which had already healed by the point I had finally gotten to the surgery. But it was just like super disfigured. And there was a loose bone that was like really close to like my aorta artery. So like if I had gotten hit in a certain way, it might have got lodged deep into something pretty serious. Moved after that, I finally was thrown on another bus, then a plane, then a private plane, or maybe just the private plane. I can't remember. It was like a small plane. It was just like me and another guy on it. And
that was that wasn't Con Air. That was like a private airliner.
I think they just have smaller planes for U.S. Marshals sometimes when it's just a couple people. Or if it's like, I think at that point, like I was like high priority because I had shattered my collarbone.
I see. That makes sense.
So it might have been that. And it was Con Air for 2 flights right before that. And then this flight was like, just different. But, flown to Virginia, bus ride to not C2B, but C2C for the 14-day quarantine again, which was nicer than the Federal Transfer Center at that point because it was like an hour out of your cell out of 23 hours.
When you say
2 weeks,
when you say C2C, so you go from Virginia to the DC jail, and then you're quarantining. You're not quarantining in C2B or C2A. You're in C2C.
Oh, C2A. You're right. C2A, C2A, then C2B. You're right.
Okay. Let me ask you.
Just next door.
So before you get to DC, throughout your diesel therapy, did you come across any other defendants? Like, it's a common thing. A lot of people end up like, I know you had the collarbone thing. So like, but a lot of people end up linking up with other defendants as they're kind of like, herded to DC. Did you see anybody else on the way there?
I didn't see him, but I was looking for him, right? So because I'd known like 300 arrests, 400 arrests each week, I was going by and seeing how many people were getting swept up in this dragnet of mass arrests. And on the tail end at Eden, I'd heard a kid gotten arrested, some like 17, 19, something like that. And he was in quarantine at Eden about the time I had shattered my collarbone and then was shipped to Virginia. And I don't think whoever that poor kid was ever got to C2B or DC, CTF, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, from what I recall, in your timeline, I think you got to DC around, I think, April of 2021. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, how long after your arrest, like when did you get arrested exactly? Because you must have been in transit for quite some time compared to most people who came in early 2021.
Yeah, I think I was arrested January 16th.
Day after me.
And I was, And in Lewisteric, I think Biden was inaugurated while I was in Lewisteric, and then Limestone. Yeah, so that's when I was arrested.
All right. Yeah, that's
give or take a day, right? You know.
Right. What when you were quarantining in C2A, who did you end up meeting there, or was everybody already shifted over to C2B by then?
So Daniel Caldwell was there. Tom, what's Tom's last name?
Webster, or
yeah,
Civic?
Webster, real nice. Jacob Lang was above me, doing his hunger strike crap, and Guy Reffitt, I think, was doing that with them, for a while, and we were trying to sneak him food, and we had like. But somehow, either Veterans Day, maybe is Veterans Day. What is Veterans Day? Is that March?
No, Veterans Day is in. I think it's November.
What? Oh, so Veterans Day or 4th of July or some sort of one of the patriotic holidays. I made flags while I was still in C2A, 2 of them, and we put it on the wall, and some racist cops confiscated them. So it was that was like the second and third flag I made. I made one flag while in Oklahoma, and they were trying to kick me out of Oklahoma, put me anywhere. So they pulled me out of my cell before my surgery, and took all whatever crap I had in there, which was just like collected garbage and pencils and whatever. And then when I got back, the flag I had made, which was stuck in the mirror, had been confiscated. So that was like the very first one. It was probably confiscated by another one of the prisoners that, like an orderly that had to clean the room after I was kicked out. And then they just put me right back in the cell because they went down to the office and figured out I was waiting for a surgery. So, and then in C2A, maybe it was Veterans Day. So we sang the national anthem, and then the guards do a hissy fit, put us back in our cells for singing the national anthem, and then confiscated the 2 flags I had made with like crayons or color pencils. And after however many days it seemed like it was longer than 14 days. It seemed like it was maybe 30 days or something.
Yeah,
before I got to C2B.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask, like what month you thought it was when you actually got transferred over. Because there were some people who came in from C2B to C2A pretty quick. And then it seemed like a lot of other people who came with those people were still lingering on the other side for a while. And it didn't seem like there was rhyme or reason.
It seemed like we lingered there for a really long time. And I don't know why. And I think a 4th flag I slipped under the door to the C2B guys because we talked. I remember talking to Ronnie. I didn't know what Ronnie looked like because I was talking through the crack of the door with him for like a week before or 2 weeks before I ever got over there. And he was the one who got the 4th flag. I don't know if that one got confiscated, but I think it did on the same day that the other 2 got confiscated.
Was that the one? Was that the one Ronnie tried to get people to sign so he could sell it?
Probably, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I remember. Well, on the subject of that, I mean, there's a lot of different things to talk about in terms of the DC jail, like the conditions and all that. But one thing that really stands out about you in particular, Garret, is how talented you are. And so,
thanks, man.
Oh man, you got it, man. It's what shit, man. We out here. I wanted to, I wanted to highlight something that you've kind of already talked about, which is all the flags. You're a very good artist. I want to know, like, did you go to school for art, or are you just naturally, talented?
No, dude. I literally was like, in the total like solitary confinement in Oklahoma. I absolutely had to start working on shit. Because I was losing my mind there. Like, it was the worst solitary confinement. I was there for a long time. So like I would I wrote out long rhymes. I read probably like 80% of the Bible, but you can only read for so long before your brain gets tired of it. And then I got moved around a couple of different cells, and eventually I got this cell where I had an outside view facing south from the jail, and I could see. I got into bird watching, where I'd just sit at the window after breakfast and just stare outside at the trees. It was nice to be able to see the trees, because I had the cell before that was just a brick wall, and it was rough just having that cell on the side that faced a brick wall. And then when I had that window, it was nice seeing the stuff. But like so I started drawing and write letters to my mom while I was there in that hellhole, and I kept it up because it was just kind of like, well, this is going to be my one vice while I'm in jail, is I'm just going to focus on drawing. And it kind of, it was something I stuck with, and I was not that good at drawing at first, and it just gradually got better. So it's something that I was like, well, when I get out of jail, if I work on this consistently, I'll have a pretty good skill. And so by the end, 32 months later, my drawing had improved quite a bit. And I think most people in jail were impressed with it. But then I got out, and then everything's being drawn by AI, which was trippy. The whole AI thing was not a real thing when we were arrested, and then we got out. It's like, there's AI video, and
fucking Grok took your job. He took my job.
Cartoons are being drawn by the AI in seconds, and songs and all sorts of crazy shit. But yeah, I took my job. Yeah, but AI doesn't can't draw like really creative things. It can only draw like genres that have already been drawn, or that have been drawn before.
Yeah, it builds off patterns.
Yeah, so if you actually do anything unique, or if you want a product that's unique, it still has to be done by a human. So calligraphy, I got into J.M. Bergling, who's a kind of a anagram expert, like very fancy lettering, from like 1890s to 1920s, and his work is really strong today, and AI can't do it at all, or at least I don't know how to get AI to do it. So there's certain niches like that, that human artists still are more superior at. I'm actually thinking about starting to do tattoos. Just because like I'm working in a restaurant right now, and I'm only getting paid like $12 an hour plus tips, and tattoo artists get paid like $60 an hour or whatever. So, probably be picking that up soon as like a third job.
I mean, you should consider it. I mean, Pete used to do that. I think people in the jail were doing it too. I mean, I don't know if you made it. Who made the tattoo gun?
That's Bobby. I think Bobby gets all the credit, but I think it was a team effort, because acquiring pieces was like everyone had to.
Yeah.
One thing had to come from one place. Another thing had to come from another. And it was all stolen. There was no way to get the exact part without stripping it out of one thing or another.
Well, that was the funny thing too about you, is in particular you weren't just artistic. You were also pretty nifty. You were like I called you in the beginning, the inventor of the gulag. I remember anytime I would come up to your cell, you were just tinkering away, I remember you were going to turn those clamshell cases for the chow. like those stupid plastic containers for the lunches. You were trying to turn them into like a table. You had like 20 of them stacked up. I'm like, why would you want a table from those? But you found ways to make things I never would have even imagined.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's fun. I don't know. Jailhouse engineering is fun. I think Guy Reffitt had the nicest lighters and candles. I like the candle idea. He's genius. And then, Bobby was better than me probably. But I made really good, I think, sewing needles, from the battery cores and small tools. Like, I made nail clipper basically from a battery core. The battery core metal was just, which you used as a screwdriver eventually, if I remember right.
Yeah. Or tried to.
Yeah. And when you have like that many people, the crowdsource effect kind of where different people specialize in different things. So I drew tattoos for people, and then other guys would be the ones that would do the actual tattoo part. So it was like a three-step process where like one guy's the customer, and then three guys work on getting the ink, and then one guy draws the art form, and then another guy does the stitching basically. Which is all cool, man. It's all cool. It's like once you're stripped from the American economy, economics doesn't disappear. It just morphs a little bit under the current condition.
It's the jailhouse production line.
Yeah. And once you have those skills, they transfer really well to other jails. So we're following from C2B. We could talk a lot about C2B, but just to finish up the line of transfers, right? I get sentenced, and then I'm shipped down to Texas, where I get a stint back in Grady. So like, bus ride playing Grady. Well,
Grady. Wait,
Grady.
So
and then in Grady,
in Oklahoma, then, or is there a Grady in Texas too?
No, Shady Grady. Sorry, in Oklahoma, right?
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, but instead of flying out of Virginia, I flew out of Pennsylvania, and there were a whole bunch of January 6ers on that bus. Like, that bus was like, I think Pennsylvania jail was getting shut down or something because of how cruel the treatment was, and the January 6ers were getting congressmen to talk about it and investigate it, and a whole bunch of people were just getting shipped from the Pennsylvania jail. And then in Grady, they were doing swabs, and I refused to swab on religious grounds. They threw me in a piss locker, and then they put me in the COVID positive section, and then they put me in solitaire. And then after like a week, I think, I got shipped to an overnight stay in some jail in North Texas that I can't remember the name of, and then I got sent to Johnson County jail for like 8 months, and they put me in like a Mexican pod where like in Texas we have like a lot of American Hispanics, and then like we have like immigrant Hispanics. So it was like 60% immigrant Hispanic with like 4 guys that were American Hispanic, and then like one other white dude. So it was like basically a Mexican pod, and I did art for them, but they were racist as fuck. So they just didn't like they didn't like white guys that much, or a couple of them didn't like white guys that much, and they were the ones in charge. But for the most part, Mexicans aren't terrible to get along with, but like I had learned my lesson not to give anyone a chance to fuck you over. So I kept my guard up there, but I would do art for them. And then in that pod they added a few more white guys and a few more white guys, or not white guys, but white Hispanic guys, and then a white Hispanic guy, which I mean he's basically white, but he spoke Spanish and was partially Hispanic, but got into a fight with the Mexican, or almost got into a fight with the Mexicans over the TV. And then the Mexicans were like, fuck this, we're going to go live with the Mexicans. And then we got a whole bunch of black dudes in. And then, which was better because we got big Scrabble games and the black guys could actually play Scrabble. Like Spanish speakers obviously can't, we had good Scrabble games. And then, got shipped to, the last prison in Dallas. That was my BOP. I finally got to the BOP, and I wasn't even there that long. It'll come to me in a minute. Federal prison, Dallas. But it was basically a large jail with like 200 people, but like what you see on TV. What you would see on TV. Like mostly, I did like 90% of my time in just jails, you know? Seagoville, that's it. Yeah, I went to Seagoville. And Seagoville, just normal prison, man. TVs, BOP food, like real prisoners, actual criminals that will stab you. Murderers, pedophiles, heroin addicts, drug dealers.
The full experience.
Yeah, just a normal run of the bunch, but just not the level of I wouldn't say intelligent, but just like I'd say we're middle class. A lot of these people were pretty poor. You know, if they get out of jail, they'll probably be homeless. A lot of them. So just different. Not that that's a bad thing. I don't want to judge them. It's just like, when they're asking me about their case and stuff, I'm like, well, that's not how federal law works. That word means this, and whatever. You know what I mean? And just a lot of drug abuse, really. But and then I got released. I had done my time. I still had a gun charge hanging over my head. So that I had so I got released like March or January. I don't remember what day I was released, honestly.
Can we get into that?
Maybe it was
can we get into
September.
Like, if you could rewind, go through the actual progression of your case, because the whole gun charge shit doesn't really make sense to me. And I think I know a few people like Refit. A few people got hit with extra charges. Sometimes it was state charges. Sometimes it was federal, but out of the local federal district of their state that they were at. Could you explain the nuances of like how that came about and why?
Yeah. So eventually, I got charged with 13 or 12 felonies in the district of DC, whatever federal district that is, maybe 5, federal district 5, and got 2 of them removed in pretrial motions, the 1512, and another threat charge, because like I had written a bunch of threatening messages about the cop that killed Ashley Babbitt. And then there were like 10 other charges. Got to trial and pled guilty, and I don't know to how many, I guess, because like the lesser charges didn't matter. It was just like the most severe charge. The most severe charge was 111A, assault. So pled guilty, and then did kind of the sentencing guideline to get as few months of prison as possible. Was sentenced to 38 months. So 720 days later, after doing all of that, the FBI decides to follow up with a gun charge, and I had a short barrel rifle in my house when they raided it. Another thing that I could have reached for that would have gotten me most certainly murdered or killed by the police, whatever you want to say. And, you buy something, you put it together, and you think, well, I'll never have an issue with this, and BLM's writing, so I need something to protect my house. And I just had it there, and never, it might have been assembled for like a month or two by the time I was arrested. But got hit with a failure to register my short barrel rifle charge. So basically I didn't pay $160 in a registration fee and fill out a form for that gun. So the DOJ tries to hit me with another 2 to 3 years of prison. I go to trial. Well, I don't go to trial, but I go before the judge and I plead guilty to that. So I can get acceptance and just hopefully get probation. I got probation, and that was like September 2024. Still didn't know if Trump was going to win or anything. But after that sentencing, I finally felt free, like I could talk a little bit or talk to people. And so I don't know, what do you want? Trump gets elected, we get pardoned. I get pardoned for all the DC stuff, but my probation officer informs me that the pardon does not extend to my gun charge stuff. So I still have September 2024 is 2025. So I still have almost 2 more years of probation, I guess.
Are you seeking relief about that? Because my understanding is Guy Reffitt's similar situation got dealt with. Another guy, Dan Wilson.
Guy Reffitt pushed his off, and then the charges were dropped after his pardon. So the DOJ just dropped it, and then he didn't have to go and do anything with it. Because he had, but because my charge was, I guess, filed a year, or the paperwork had gotten to it the court system had gotten to it about a year before, guys. Mine stuck. So it's just like the chaos of the justice system. A process was followed, and it's not equal or doesn't make sense, but step-by-step process, things get done, regardless of how anyone feels about it.
Yeah.
I'm following up on that. We're trying to talk to the pardon office about getting pardoned for it.
I'd say there's a decent shot, because Dan Wilson just got, I believe, a second pardon, which is why he's no longer in federal custody anymore. I saw that, and it was just like last week or a few days ago, I think.
Yep. That I saw it, which is good. So things are making progress on that. My lawyer, I think, wrote up a brief case summary and submitted it to what's his name's office. I mean, it's the pardon office, but
Ed Martin.
I'm trying to remember. Yeah, Ed Martin's that office for review. I'm not sure if Martin responded, though. I think what I heard back from my lawyer last was he tried calling and he hadn't gotten a response or wasn't able to contact. But yeah, it's just like, it's paperwork in the justice system, so you just
wait,
send a letter, file something, and wait. So I'm on step 3 of waiting on a third submission or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like the grievance process. Step 4, wait 5,000 years. Well, on that subject, let's go back to DC.
Sure.
I remember quite a few people had issues, grievances filed. Almost nothing was ever resolved or alleviated in terms of grievances. But you'd hinted at it a few times. You were very anti-mask. There were a lot of times, from my recollection, that other people who were allowed out of their cells once they finally ended the nonstop solitary confinement in C2B, they started letting people out a little longer, except you. And it wasn't all the time, but there were a lot of times where, because you didn't want to wear a mask, they just wouldn't let you out of your cell. Could you talk a bit about that, the logic behind it, and how long that went on?
Yeah. So, I mean, I was protesting the mask mandate in 2020, and I'd been kicked out of banks and bars and that sort of thing for refusing to wear a mask, and then you get busted and you face down the gun barrel and you're demonized as a terrorist on TV and stuff like that. So I started wearing the mask again a little bit. And then, we get to DC and you're sitting in your cell thinking about how insane everything is. And eventually I was like, no, this is not my fault. Or you come to that realization, everything else is fucked up and I do not want to partake in it anymore. And I had never really read the Bible before, but I had read it in jail. I was like a Christian in name only, kind of like rhinos, where I claimed to be a Christian, but I didn't know what it meant. But after being locked up, and I actually had time to read the whole thing and meditate on it for a long period of time, it gave me the strength in prison to act on it. And I started refusing the mask when we were raided by so when C2B was raided for some bullshit, I don't know what, I can't remember. I think it followed a Dempsey sneak out. No, Dempsey snuck out after I'd been thrown into. Oh, okay. It's more funny to tell it. So, we were getting busted for wine a lot, and they were raiding us a lot. And so, winter 2021, 2022, I think I got thrown in the hole for winemaking. And then as I'm leaving the hole, David Dempsey's getting thrown in the hole for sneaking out of his cell. And then I get back and I just spent a week or two in solitary confinement for getting caught with a bunch of wine. And they're pissed off at us for all this bullshit. So they're raiding us at 6 a.m. in the morning. And they're like, put your mask on, and kicking us all over our cell and tossing all our shit. And I just say, fuck that. I'm not wearing my mask. And I sit down and I decided I'm just not going to do this shit anymore. And I started writing, and submitting, grievance forms for my religious reasoning for not wanting to wear the mask. Step by step, going book through book and writing it out and submitting grievances. And that might have been actually February 2022. And then March, I had a pretty good explanation, probably my 7th or 8th grievance form filled out about it, submitted. And they're starting to lock me down in my cell the whole time. And then we get raided again, January, February, March. So May, I had it good, and then March we're getting raided again, and I refused to wear a mask. And then they put me in handcuffs and tried to force a mask on my face, and then I ripped away from their arms with my handcuffs behind my back and my shoulder surgery and everything, and tried to defend myself by kind of dodging and weaving and rolling around on the ground and just keeping them from putting a mask on my face. And they dragged me out by my arms, wrenched behind my back, and pretty much assaulted me for refusing to wear a mask. And so then I explained to the sergeant what my mask refusal was all about. They put me back in my cell and pretty much kept me on lockdown unless it was the weekend. And then the weekend guards might let me out unless it was the old guy. He just didn't care. And I think I spent most of 2022 in solitary confinement, except you guys could come to my door and talk to me. So it was that, and I had a pretty good cell where I could peek out the window and watch the TV if I wanted to. And we had tablets and shit, so it wasn't that, it wasn't as bad as solitary confinement in Oklahoma. And I was working on art shit, so I just didn't give a fuck if they locked me in my cell. I'd just gotten used to solitary confinement. At that point, we'd spent all of 2021 in solitary confinement. So it was just like I kept on being in solitary confinement. And I spent probably 2 years. I mean, 80% of 2 years. I don't know, so they let up towards the end, and then they lifted the mandates in DC eventually right when I left. It was like the war had been won, and then they shipped me off to Dallas. So it was like, from my perspective, it was kind of epic.
Good job, soldier.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I remember a lot of the grievances, and it was just like you had this funny way of writing passive aggressively right at the end when you would quote like Genesis or whatever you would write, and right at the end of it, you were like, "Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to tell you why this is evil." It was so fucking funny, and maybe unintentionally. But...
No, I mean, because there is a lot in the Bible about not, blessing your persecutors. So I was like just following the status, like the step-by-step checklist for how a Christian is supposed to obey authority, but obey God first. And my reasoning is all men are made in the image of God, right? So this mask is the defilement of our glory, our birthright, our crown, which is being made in the image of God. So I didn't want to do it from a completely disrespectful way. I had to show respect to the guards in doing it to the best of my ability, but it would be so infuriating. And really, I feel like they treated y'all better after that, and then just left me in my cell because of it. So I felt like a lot of you guys got a little bit better treatment in the cell block. But just because we weren't getting raided as much, though. Really, it was just like they would do individual. They would raid like 1 or 2 cells, but they wouldn't do the whole cell block as often. Yeah,
and they would usually I think Ronnie got caught with stuff a few times. I think they had like their guys. They selected a few people that they were gonna basically search every single time they came in for quite a while. It felt like I know a lot of people just never got searched, but then like a handful of people always got searched. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, I just that kind of made me want to make my cell messier because they would have to go through all of it. And then for art, I would always be collecting shit that I could make stuff with. So, I would make my cell a real pain in the ass to search. And it was just such a pain for the guards to come up and search our shit. And it became a system of rebellion. That I was follow, and I kept writing my grievances for, and I climbed all the way to the top and got denied at every step, and then started the process again, and was even at that point starting to write Mariel Bowser's office about it. And at that point, and then she lifted the citywide mask mandate. And I kept writing, and then by the time I was being shipped off, it was lifted for the federal agency buildings too, which is like most of DC. So it was like complete, even when you lift it for the restaurants and stuff, you have all these federal buildings where they're still required. So it's still like 50%, Orwellian state for the city, So I'm sure there was a whole bunch of other stuff going on outside for like churches, and there was a state bar that was in the news a lot, and we had our radio, so I was always listening to Chris Plant at the time to hear about the going on in the city's peaceful protests against the mandates in DC. So it was nice seeing the whole movement.
Yeah.
Or not seeing it, but seeing it kind of in my mind's eye, or hearing it in my ear, you know?
When you were, whether you were locked down and then eventually maybe a little bit less, you know, for me, like in the DC jail and then in prison, like I had my own routine. In DC, in both of them, I would sleep through the day besides rec time, and then I would stay up all night reading or whatever. That was how I, got through most of my day. What about you? What would, besides, you did art. I know you were interested in doing, like, you did a lot of board games with Jess and I think Cleve. How did you get through most of your day in and out of your cell, insofar as you had the ability to do anything?
Well, a lot of times, you can't eat 3 meals a day. So a lot of times I would skip one of the meals, usually breakfast. And I would try to be up by 9 to pop in my earbuds for Chris Plant, because it was 9 to noon. And would listen to his show to get caught up on the news of the day. And I would just be working on art a lot of the time. So I drove, I think by the end, something like 13 or 14 flags had been confiscated by guards. And we'd sing the national anthem at 9 p.m. every night. So that was part of the schedule. And if I was not allowed out of my cell that day, I'd do a sink bath. Okay, so we had to share tablets. So if I got the tablet, I would listen to an audiobook, or I would read a book through the tablet. And then I had books that I would read also. So, and then I had the Spawn comic books. But I did a tremendous amount of artwork. So, like, even though I was in prison and could do nothing, like, that was torture. So, just pumping out artwork for people for their letters to congressmen, or like Brandon Fellows had a sign he held up in court that said, "I would like to speak." And drew that up for him. I did the shoes for a lot of guys. I decorated shoes.
The Jan 6 kicks.
Jan 6 kicks, and it was all before the Trump shoes, and that was a thing. And and then like the DC cops had their own art, and that was a news story for a day, where it's like these DC veteran heroes, and here's how they coped with the terrible trauma from January 6th, and here's their art pieces. So there's like 5 cops holding up some art. And it was pretty good artwork, but they had all the supplies in the world to do their artwork. Here's the thing with my artwork is only thing I could use was shit I could get in jail. So like, some of the pins were stolen. Some of the canvases were file folders, because that was the biggest sheet of paper I could get. We didn't have trace paper for a long time. So it's just like, and then it was low light. It wasn't like a drawing board or anything. There were no pastel colors or oil paint or anything like that. I don't know. And there's no Google, so you can't pull up reference photos. So if I wanted a reference picture from something, I'd go through books, or if I saw something cool in a magazine, I would save the magazine or rip the page out of the magazine so I could use that reference art to incorporate it. And by the end, we had a pretty good little collection of art books and comic books, and fashion magazines and all sorts of stuff to reference and letters, and I could incorporate, all sorts of stuff into my flags or the shoe designs or whatever. Yeah.
How
like drawing the Capitol was hard because you had to have different sizes, and it's such a detail-oriented picture to have all the windows in the right place. And trying to do it from scratch is way harder than just copying it. So I had like 6 or 7 different Capitol dome pictures that I would use to
reference.
To reference for like January 6th postcards for people. And then we had a logo, like a January 6th POW logo. And then, so I sent that out and then had my mom print a bunch of things and then a bunch of copies, and it was sent back. And then that was a letterhead for a lot of the guys to write out nice decorative letters. And then the tattoo designs. So I would draw the tattoo design that like Brian Mock, I think, wanted a
dildo?
Roadster.
Oh.
Yeah. He wanted like a tattoo of like a monster roadster type car tattoo. So I drew him a sketch type thing. Stuff like that, man.
Well, I remember you had your own logo. I remember it was the mask with lies written on it. I remember that was always, it was like your signature, actually.
That was a signature. Because I was still pre-trial for a lot of that time, so anything I wrote out in a letter could be used against me, or anything with my artwork could be used against me. So instead of signing things with my name, it was signed with that logo and the date. That way, it wouldn't show up at my sentencing, and I wouldn't get 6 years because the DOJ said I wasn't repentant for my crimes. So I kept my mouth shut, and I just produced art for y'all to do whatever y'all wanted with. But when it came down to sentencing, I got out a year earlier because I was a little bit more careful.
Yeah, I had to be more careful. A lot of people weren't careful. So that was pretty good of you. Smart. Like I have like your parents, who I love to death. They when I was in prison, they actually sent me one of a copy of one of the flags in the mail. And I have one of that, and there's like a bunch that are online, different versions that were all made by you, and half of them have my signature, half of them don't. After some point, I just stopped signing stuff because then people were trying to. I felt like people were trying to steal my signature at some point. I'm like, I don't know. That was
the paranoid state we were in.
Yeah,
it wasn't necessarily justified, but it was partially justified. And like the FBI was doing fucked up shit, and the DOJ was really doing messed up stuff. I mean, people were getting charged with terrorist enhancements and committing suicide.
Yeah, and half the mail that was, a lot of mail was going missing in terms of like what maybe taking stuff that was supposed to come in. It was sometime in the beginning. It was like 2 months to get a letter that was in. They would like hold the mail in the mail office and just not give it to us. And so you never really knew what was going on there. In terms of them locking you down or retaliating against you in particular, I recall that you seem to have been denied access to your lawyer a few times because you refused to wear a mask. So like, did you feel, how did it work? I know your lawyer wasn't exactly a Trump guy, but what kind of issues came up with your case in terms of you even being able to defend yourself because of the way you were treated in the jail, or access to your evidence or any of that?
Yeah, so so Garret had my lawyer, and Clint came up to see both of us one day, and after Garret visit, they took me down to see my lawyer, and I refused to wear a mask. And then they refused to let me see my lawyer. So then my lawyer was like, if you refuse to comply, I won't represent you anymore. And so that would have fucked me. That would have like, just because my parents were paying for this lawyer, would have put my parents out of $40,000 in money, or more, probably probably another $100,000 for something just to get a new lawyer, and then that lawyer would probably be shit. You know what I mean? Like, so eventually I caved like 2 times to see my lawyer, and like once to get a haircut, and then once to go to court. But I was able to not wear the mask in court, even though it was still mandated in federal buildings, I think, at that time during my trial. So that's kind of all that would happen, and that's probably the worst thing, is like, because it's like I had to like, it was like having my family put hostage against my religious beliefs. So it's like, choose between God and your family type situation, and it's still, it still hurts to this day that I had to put the mask on to see my lawyer. And my lawyer didn't give a damn. He still doesn't give a damn. You know what I mean? It's just sickening. It's just, yeah. And the guards that forced me to wear a mask didn't give a damn. It's just like, people just still don't get it. And I don't know. It still burns me up. I'm still angry about it. Still angry about having to put that mask on. After being assaulted, after being solitary confinement for, almost 2 years, and having to bend the knee to them, despite explaining it to them for years, and them not giving a damn about my religious exemption that I carefully explained and had suffered for.
What
Yeah.
What long term, like, I know everybody's different, but like, did the length of your captivity, the conditions of it, has it had a long term impact on your health or your spirit, or just even, I don't know, the way you think? Like, I know that once you spent a year in solitary, it changes you a little bit, at the very least. How has this affected you? How has it affected your family? I mean, you spent years in prison for a bullshit crime on top of everything else, then the lies and all this. How has this affected the way you think and the way you go through every day?
Well, there's physical changes that I went through, and there's psychological changes. So, like, I was in really good shape when I was arrested. I could probably run 5 miles, no problem. I think I weighed maybe 145 pounds. And I think I weigh probably 165 now, but I probably ballooned up to maybe 190 while in jail from bologna sandwiches and just sedentary lifestyle. I could have worked out myself, but it's just like boredom on top of boredom. When you're in that state, you just need something. You need some sort of spiritual fruit to keep you going every day. So my health suffered, but when I got out, I tried to go back to the lifestyle that I had before I was locked up. But I was 35 when I was locked up, and I was 38 when I was released. And, just a little bit older. My hairline had moved back about 4 inches. And I tried going to the club and dancing a lot, or being social, but it just changes you. And I'm just not as social of a person anymore. I go to work, I come home, and that's about it. And I just try to work on my home, or stay at home and work on things at home. Like my lifestyle in jail my lifestyle before jail was very like outgoing and very like I love to travel. I would take every opportunity to travel, but if it's not for something specific, like I don't travel now for someone's funeral, maybe I'll travel or to see some friend or whatever. But I don't really leave the house or unless it's good to go to work. You know what I mean? And if I'm working on, it's just like I built my my routine and I stuck to it when I got out. And that's probably a good thing. I don't necessarily think it's terrible. It's just yeah, it had an effect. But a lot of that effect is good. Like I still read the Bible a lot. I still I certainly, I'm not reading it now as much as I was in jail, but I work like 12-hour days, some days, or 6-hour days, 5 to 6 days a week. So yeah, I'm slowly getting back in shape, but I'm just much older and not 35 anymore. So it's not like I'm going out hunting for 4 or 5 hours in the woods because I can't. Still on probation. So not hauling in 1 or 2 deers every year to stick in a freezer for cheap food for the family. I couldn't do the dog boarding business if I wanted to. Like the dogs would just, it was just so much labor. That's what kept me fit is I was walking dogs and keeping them from fighting and, taking care of them every morning, every evening and working 12 hours when before I got arrested. So 12-hour shifts, I mean, it's just like, so how has it affected me? I've just shifted from a very physical lifestyle to a very craft heavy, meditative. But I've gotten out and I watch way too much YouTube and I'm still watching a lot of politics. And I wasn't really very politically concerned before the theft of the 2020 election. Like I would always vote Republican, but I try to ignore politics as much as possible and just enjoy my life. But political fears and like the power struggle in government, because it has had such an effect on my life, is still like a real focus of my daily life, staying up to on the news and making sure that I know how the political winds turn and what might be coming down the pipe at us. You know what I mean? So fear for the future is real. I have a much greater fear for what could be thrown at us now than I did prior to 2020. And that's not just prison though, but that's just like everything. But prison had a pretty big part of that. And then, the psychological and the social changes. Yeah. I'd say like I'm much more vigilant now. Like I'm worried about being attacked more now. I'm, much more aware of my surroundings and I'm certainly much more reserved.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone.
Yeah.
I don't think you're alone in that. The hyper awareness is something that I really took away from captivity. Like you said, awareness of your surroundings. What are some other things, if anything else, that you think people should know, in particular, specifically about your captivity? And then after that, I do want to get into what you had just mentioned about the future, because you had mentioned that you were maybe politically apathetic, but now you have a lot of concerns for the future and you pay more attention. So if you could, what have we not discussed about captivity, and maybe even your case or whatever, in terms of all this in the past few years that we didn't address, but that you want to focus on or let people know about that they should know about? And then I want to transition to, what does Garret Miller think hasn't been done but needs to be done? What is your vision for the country going forward? What does the fate of America need to be now that theoretically things are moving in a better direction?
Well, on the first part, I think just maybe touch on a couple of stories. So I think I made something like 30 flags for people. So made a whole bunch of flags and handed them out. But I had made sequence boards. So like board game making. I drew up sequence boards and made them, and that was a fun game for the guys for like 6 to 8 months. It was like the most popular game. Everyone was playing sequence. And, I was making Magic the Gathering cards for Jess, and we eventually got real Magic the Card Gathering, or printed versions that could be cut out. But so we were playing Magic the Gathering, and then Jeffrey Sable made his little, like, it wasn't Connect Four, but it was like you put a peg on one side and then everything in the middle splits. So we were just making a whole bunch of board games and figuring out ways to stay entertained. And that didn't end. I'm still super obsessed with board games and that was part of the crafting. And I still work on board games. Now I'm making chess sets. So I make I'm trying to make a kung fu chessboard game right now, and it's very labor intensive, but I've made a couple of versions, so it's real fun that I'm trying to bridge out and, use this obsession I had in jail. And when I got out of jail, I was doing a lot of research on Sequence, and I read the creator of Sequence has his bio and his life story and how he made the game up on the Sequence website, and pretty interesting guy. But you think about all the things that our country went through since like Obama stepped down and Trump became president, and one of the things that happened with his son is his son had a this is the interesting take I got from Sequence. That was the first game I made in jail for everyone. It was real big. Is that his son, this is tragic, but his son, smoked pot and had a psychotic event and was shot by police, I think in Portland. And it's really sad. And basically, his life story includes the vast majority of it is, his efforts to end drug abuse in America. And while Biden was president, something like 200,000 people OD'd on fentanyl, and we had this opioid epidemic. And it was crazy. It was crazy to me because, like, you look at the social degradation in our society, and it had a lot to do with like liberal ideas about drug use. That kind of led to a lot of the problems that we see, just like the mental weakness of the American people. It's like we were all getting too stoned for a while there, and maybe you can't win the debate about why weed should be illegal, but on a society level, it doesn't seem to work, We probably should have really strict drug laws if we want to be the leading, or if we want to stay the leading superpower of the world. And the second you're not the leading superpower of the world, you're going to have people invading you. Quite literally invading your nation and killing your people, or whatever, bombing your nation. If you're going to be the the strongest American country in the world, the American people have to be mentally the strongest people in the world, and that means you can't allow drug use. That's what I think. I mean, that's kind of what I took away from it. It's just like, I've got this counter narrative of board games in my head from what I saw, from what we've seen in the past decade. So, a Republican push or a Democrat push, probably both parties need to be pushed to stricter drug laws and actual, tamping down this weed epidemic we have. Even though, whatever, I'm just saying, American people as a whole have got to be more intelligent and have got to be more aware and have got to be working harder if we're going to stay safe within our borders. We can't be fools. And I don't know. My chess has gotten a lot better since I've gotten out because I've studied chess. While in jail, didn't study at all, but would spend hours playing it, and it was not fun. I never found chess fun in jail because you could spend 4 hours on a game with someone and they wouldn't mind. Everyone had the time, but the game would infuriate you. And I've since gotten out and realized that if you don't make the right moves at the start of the game, there's no way to win sometimes. So that's another part. And I think we're ready to move on to the second part of the question. What was the second part?
And just what you would like to see going forward in the country. You had said that you were kind of you voted Republican, but before the election and before J6 and all that, you were kind of more or less apathetic, or you just wanted to kind of tone it out. But now you're kind of like hyper focused on staying on top of things, and just you kind of with the drug thing, you kind of hinted that you're not very libertarian in terms of the drug liberalization. So I mean, what are your actual views, I guess? What would you like to see for America going forward? Maybe in terms of J6, what hasn't been done that you still think needs to come forward from that? How should the country move forward, basically?
Well, I would like a second part, but
I bet.
It's the current situation in the country is, we're dealing with a lot of backlash from identity politics. I don't necessarily think that it's bad. I actually kind of agree with it. Like, when I was locked up, I wasn't racist at all, and now after all of that stuff, and after kind of taking it in from this perspective, I don't even care. And I think that's like a general belief in the country. Like, it's that even if you are racist, you have to remember to be polite and still treat everyone with the respect that they are an image bearer. That everyone's made in the image of God. So that's kind of on that. Like, it's like I was being called a racist when I wasn't a racist, and now I just don't care about being called a racist. But I don't see that as conflicting with my religious beliefs. I kind of want to protect my people, and I consider myself now a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant person, and I think that's like a subsection, a nation within the nation of America. Like, I don't feel like America is united. Like, I don't feel super patriotic now. But I was super patriotic in 2020 and 2021. Like, I cared about the nation, but of the United States of America, and here we are in 2025, and I don't care about the United States of America. I care about what I think I am. I care about my people. I care about my family. I care about my people just like Protestants. Like, And then maybe third down the row, I guess God is number one at the top, actually. So it's like God, family, people, and then maybe nation at number 4. You know what I mean? But even before nation, it's like state of Texas. It's like my state. We're a collection of countries. We're not, in my mind, kind of. And these many countries are warring with each other, with like Canada versus Florida, or California versus Florida, or whatever. Or I guess it would be more like New York versus Florida and Texas versus California, right? It's kind of like these internal battles, but I kind of think those battles are a good thing. But it's just everything about it is crazy. It's like when I wasn't racist, I was forced to be racist by the people calling me racist, thinking that racist is the most evil thing. Yeah, it's just
racist.
There's so many
racist white boy.
Yeah, it's just so everything's flipped 2 or 3 times in like perception of reality from point A to point B. It's really incredible that any of us that have gone through this have kept our sanity. And that's super interesting in itself that, despite all this shit, I'm still like, okay, functioning, semi-sane human being. And that's kind of cool. Hey, and that's kind of cool that you're a sane, functioning human being, Tim, because you went through all of it too. So kudos to us for just surviving,
Salute.
As far as, that's like for our nation. I think the outlook's bad. The outlook's bad, but I'm okay with it. I'm fine with it, but I'm keeping my eye on it, warily waiting for what comes next. But I think what's really good is I feel like we have so much more freedom of speech now. We really are in a place that's good as far as freedom of speech and expression now, compared to where we were in 2020. I think people really lived in fear in 2020, and I don't feel like most people live in fear now. We live in fear, but I feel like the vast majority of Americans live in less fear now. And I think a lot of people have come to Christ. Not as many as needs to come to Christ. Not a vast majority of Americans. Not what we, need to win every election, probably. But, every person that comes to Christ is a sheep, is a lost sheep found to God. So it's definitely, it's a time for celebration. But, maybe, I don't know if we're at the peak yet. I hope we're not at the peak yet. I hope we're going to keep climbing. The best is yet to come, as the saying goes. Mm. Even though like our leaders in Congress are in the worst state ever. I think, you know what I mean? I feel like Republican infighting, all the eyes are off the Democrats, and they're still the most corrupt party. And everyone's pointing fingers at Republicans, but the Epstein files. Didn't Congress pass that the Epstein files are finally getting released yesterday? I don't think that they'll actually get released. I think it'll be heavily redacted, right?
Right, or re-release something that's already been released, or
yeah. But from our points of view, we wouldn't believe anything. We wouldn't believe it even after they released it. We would think that they're holding names back somehow, or these documents are fabricated because we've seen them do it before.
Right.
But there's been so much progress in a lot of these areas, and we should be kind of super happy about that. But a lot of the Republicans are doom and gloom, and just because I guess Trump isn't as popular as he used to be, but there's casualties in war, and we're in a cultural war. So your reputation got hurt. Oh well, you're going to survive. You'll never Trump and his family will always be protected for the rest of their lives. So he doesn't really have anything to worry about. He can go all out if he wants, and he can be hated. But if he gets a lot of good work done, it won't matter. It won't matter what his reputation is. Just like, like we like to say that Obama's going to get arrested, or Hillary's going to get arrested. Like, none of that's going to happen. They're American royalty. American royalty never goes to jail. So, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but God's justice waits for everyone in the end. So I'm okay. I'm okay with however things go down as far as what happens to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very nuanced.
That's my rant. Sorry?
It's quite a nuanced, mature take on things, Garret. You're such a mature young man.
You're making me sound old.
I said young.
I know, but you slipped that in just to be contrarian, I think.
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
I will say, of all the January Sixers that are out now, I think I'm doing the worst, except for Bart. But like everyone's looking super healthy, tan, living their best life. Yeah, like a lot of people were just like, maybe Jeff. Maybe Jeff needs to get on the high horse. He still looks. I mean, he looked great in jail. He's always complaining about how he looked. He looks the same. Yeah, McKellar. Sorry, there's a lot of Jeffs. McKellar. Maybe McKellar isn't doing great. I don't know. He looked fine to me. He's got somewhere he's living. But a lot of the guys look great. They're all doing fine.
Jeff's in better shape now. He's staying quiet, kind of. He's put down some roots. He's lost some weight. He's doing all right. He's still crazy, but he's doing all right.
But the crazy that I think Jeff has always been. I think probably the stuff he went through in military might have been worse. Probably was worse than what he went through in jail. Even though we heard him complaining about jail a lot, you know what I mean?
No, man.
But it was just such an inversion.
This is just like when I was in Kenya, man. This is just like Seer School all over again, man. This Mr. Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever wanted a breakdown of a military battle in the modern age, he read the report. It would probably be 150 pages, and he remembered half of it.
Combat mode on.
Yeah, great dudes, man. Everyone in C2B, pretty cool. In my opinion. We have our disagreements, but we've got our drama. But I like you guys. You guys are cool.
Oh, thanks. We like you too. Thanks for those Spawn comics, man. They were
pretty dope. We only got to like book 21, I think, by the time we got out.
It was actually a real treat for me, actually, because when I was growing up, I was never a comic guy. But my grandfather, he gave me two kinds of comics: Daredevil and Spawn. And I remember I was definitely a fan of Spawn, so it was really cool to actually reread them because I was a grown, I hadn't read them since I was a kid, so that was actually really cool. I'm gonna close this out with bringing attention to one more fact about Garret, and since he was so kind and generous and saying he likes us, he really likes us. All the defendants, when I was there, could always rely on Garret to do a very important task, which was every night when we sang the national anthem, Garret would take one of his flags and he would get up on the overhang, the crosswalk from the second tier, and he would hold up the flag and move it back and forth as we sang the anthem. So even though they didn't want to give us a flag, Garret could always be relied on to produce a flag and give us somewhere to look towards up above as we sang. And that was always super important. And so I want people to know about your role, Garret, in the ever-evolving tradition of the anthem in the jail. You're a super big part of history, young man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Doesn't feel like it.
No.
Doesn't feel like it now. Dude, and there's a lot of guys there. They're all veterans, and they'd be telling me about a battle, and I had never heard about it. I didn't know anything about it. It's sad that that Americans don't really understand the heroism that our veterans are owed, really. But I'm just a protester, man. I'm just a protester, dude.
Yeah, well, so was I, you know, and, oh God, I'm having flashbacks to Jake putting those fucking Purple Heart stamps on his chest and claiming he was a veteran for fighting cops. I'm gonna fucking lose my shit.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But you know,
I saw him today doing a live stream, in Dearborn, Michigan. Kind of like an anti-Muslim immigration thing.
Yeah.
But the stream feed was kind of, I don't know, I guess Twitter's back end isn't that good, Starlink or whatever. And it was just kind of sketchy or just trippy or whatever the word is. Fuzzy, but in a modern day bit cachet way. How old is he? I guess he's 30 years old now. If I was 30 years old,
30,
but I'm not.
30
I'm
31.
39, man. I'm 39, and it's time for me to be an old fart. As far as that 40-year mark has come around the line, and I need to get my finances in order and turn into an adult. So
I need to write
working on my board game.
I need to write my will. I'm about to die. I'm so old. I'm almost 40.
That old. Not that old. I'm not a whippersnapper like Jay.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm not jumping on skateboards and letting 3 or 4 dogs pull me at 20 miles per hour anymore. You know.
No, right.
That was my 30-year-old state. It was kind of just extreme sports, Garret.
No, you'll be back on the monkey bars in no time.
Oh. You have something like, thank you guys for tuning in. You all have a blessed day, but you have your own saying.
Thank you guys for tuning in to January 6th Unfiltered with Garret Miller. Like, share, subscribe, and all that bullshit. Pee pee poo poo.